Ethan Clark had never felt more out of place in his life. The moment he stepped into the elegant restaurant, his worn boots squeaked against the marble floor, drawing a few glances from sharply dressed guests. He adjusted the collar of his only clean shirt, feeling the weight of the evening press on him. Mason, his friend and self-proclaimed matchmaker, had sworn this blind date would change everything. But now, surrounded by glittering chandeliers and hushed voices, Ethan just wanted to disappear. He told the host his name, trying to sound confident. Reservation for Ethan Clark. The host scanned the list, nodded politely, and gestured toward a corner table. A woman sat there alone, her long dark hair cascading like silk over a pale blue dress. She was beautiful, too beautiful. Ethan's pulse quickened as he approached. "Hi," he said with an awkward smile. "You must be Claire." The woman blinked, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, then smiled faintly. "Yes, I'm Claire." Her voice was calm, soft, with a hint of hesitation. Ethan pulled out the chair, trying to hide his nerves. "Sorry if I'm late. My truck barely made it through traffic. Guess I should have fixed the brakes last week," he joked, scratching the back of his neck. She smiled politely. "You're a mechanic, then?" "Yeah," he nodded, his grin widening. "Cars are kind of my thing. I can tell you more about engines than people, though I'm trying to work on that." Her laugh was gentle, unexpected. "That's actually refreshing." They started talking about her favorite books, his loyal dog Cooper, and how he once spent Christmas Eve fixing a stranger's car in the snow. Ethan noticed something about her posture, the way she kept her hands folded on the table, not moving her legs. But he didn't ask. It didn't matter. She looked at him like no one had in years, with curiosity instead of judgment. Minutes turned into hours, and Ethan forgot where he was. The restaurant's hum faded away, it was just the two of them. When dessert arrived, he leaned in slightly and said, "You know, Claire, I was nervous as hell before tonight. But now," he smiled. "I'm glad I came." She looked down at her glass, her fingers tightening slightly. "It's been a long time since someone talked to me like I'm just me," she whispered. Ethan frowned, sensing something behind her words. But before he could respond, a sharply dressed man appeared beside their table. His expression was tense. "Excuse me," the man said, addressing Ethan. "You're Mr. Clark." Ethan nodded slowly. "I believe there's been a mistake. Your reservation was on the other side of the room. This is Miss Claire Bennett, the CEO's daughter." Ethan froze, his stomach dropping. Claire's face turned pink, her eyes flicking between them. Oh no," Ethan stammered, standing quickly. "I must have sat at the wrong table. I'm so sorry." Claire's lips trembled with a faint smile. "Don't apologize. For once, it was the right kind of mistake." The next morning, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Claire. Every word she'd said, every quiet smile, it all replayed in his mind like a film he didn't want to end. He hadn't even eaten breakfast. The guilt and confusion knotted in his stomach. How could he have sat at the wrong table and still felt like he'd met the right person? At the garage, Mason barged in, grinning as always. "Man, I heard you totally messed up that blind date last night. Sat with some CEO's daughter or something." He laughed, slapping Ethan's shoulder. Ethan looked up from the car hood, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, her name's Claire. Claire Bennett." Mason snorted. "Dude, she's like royalty in this city. Her dad owns half of downtown." But, he hesitated, lowering his voice. "You do know she's paralyzed, right? Got into an accident a while back. Wheelchair and all. Poor thing." Ethan blinked, his hands tightening around a wrench. The pieces clicked together. How she hadn't moved her legs, the way her smile sometimes faltered when the room grew quiet. She never mentioned it once. She never looked for pity. And he had treated her like any other woman. That realization hit him harder than he expected. When the rain started that evening, Ethan stayed late, fixing a broken alternator just to distract himself. The sound of rain on the tin roof matched the rhythm of his thoughts, steady, restless, searching. As he locked up, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the shop. A man in a dark suit stepped out. "Mr. Clark?" the man asked politely. "I'm from the Bennett family. Miss Claire asked me to deliver this." Ethan frowned, wiping his hands before taking the envelope. The car disappeared into the mist before he could say anything. Inside was a small watercolor painting of a sunflower breaking through cracked pavement. The soft strokes and hopeful colors made his throat tighten. On the back, in neat handwriting, were the words, "You reminded me that beauty can grow from anything broken. Claire." He stared at the message for a long time before flipping it over again. A phone number was written in the corner. His heart pounded as he pulled out his phone. "Hey Claire," he typed, "I'm the guy who sat at the wrong table. But maybe that was exactly where I was supposed to be." He hesitated, then pressed send. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then his screen lit up. "Only if you bring Cooper." Ethan laughed softly, shaking his head. The sound of rain didn't seem so heavy anymore. Weeks passed, and they met often. Sometimes in the park, sometimes at her studio, where she painted with a quiet grace. She told him about her accident, how she thought no one would ever see her as more than her wheelchair. And he told her about his dream of opening a small workshop, where people without fancy degrees could work with pride. What began as a wrong turn became something rare, two broken people who somehow made each other whole. Months later, Claire's painting hung in a gallery, a grease-stained mechanic holding a sunflower. Its title read, "Wrong Table, Right Heart." And standing beside her, Ethan finally believed that some mistakes are written by fate itself.